Hello and welcome to the More to Life podcast. I am your host, Elle Mace, and today I am joined by Donna Hay. Donna Hay is the founder of Wild Women. Hi, Donna.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good to be here. How are you?
Yeah, it's been a while. We were just saying,
I know.
haven't we?
Yeah.
It's been a while. 2 years and 4 months, actually. I know that.
Yeah, has been 2 years and 4 months, I'd say.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Since my son was born. So just give us a little bit of a better introduction, as always. I do this with all my clients, with all our guests that we have on who you are and what you do.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So I'm founder of Wild Women. Wild Women is it's evolved a lot, like since it began. It began in 2018 as a subscription box. So all based on self-care and personal development. We used to send out one box a month, which went to like women all over the world. And you used to get a non-fiction book within that box, and then a selection of kind of gifts that went with the theme of that particular book. And that's all that kind of Wild Woman was then, which was amazing. And yeah, so it started in 2018 and it grew quite slowly, like really organically. And then like February, I think it was before that. Yeah, it was around February 2020.
Yeah.
The time that we all hate to talk about.
Of course. I know where you're going with this.
It was great for me. Like my business went wild as a result of the pandemic. And that's really because so many people were looking for like gifts that make you feel good, like care packages, like gift boxes, like self-care packages, all that kind of thing. So and I just joined Not on the High Street at the time. Been invited to join kind of their seller platform. So yeah, it was like really successful time for me. And we grew, like I think we like doubled or tripled in the space of like a few months. And we went from having like this tiny little office that had no windows. It was basically a cupboard that we ran the boxes from, to we had this massive like 450 square foot which feels really big for me in comparison to like my broom cupboard that I was essentially in before. I employed my mum. We had 2 people that came in to help us pack every month. Like it was this whole crazy operation of like constantly getting paper cuts, constantly with my ruler like trying to measure which size box do I need this month. Constantly like reading loads of books to see which ones were going to go in the box. And it was like really amazing.
That's a challenge in itself.
Yeah, it was a challenge, all while still running my marketing consultancy like on the side.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a lot, but it was like so amazing. We got really good press. I was interviewed by Forbes like in the first month that I launched, which was like, I literally thought it was a joke.
That is insane.
Yeah, which was really, really amazing. So it was great. It was like a wild, no pun intended, ride. And then after like the 3rd lockdown, which I lose track of like the time now, but it was around kind of like May 2021 time. So we'd had like just over 12 months of this like amazingness.
Yeah.
We actually lost 2/3 of our subscribers in the space of like 2 to 3 weeks. And that was a really scary time because we hadn't lost subscribers really for any other reason other than the 3rd lockdown was kind of easing and people were thinking about going on holiday because we were reaching like the summer. And then there was a lot of this talk about, you know, how long's furlough going to last for? So lots of people became kind of worried about their finances. So of course the luxury stuff was the first thing to go. So I basically had to decide like, what do I do with the business? And at that time I knew that I wasn't ready. And it's not even like a thing about, am I ready for it to go? Like Wild Woman has become like ingrained in me. It's almost like a child for me.
Yeah.
I didn't want to just be like, I'm going to give you up, child.
Yeah.
So I sat with it and was like, well, like spoke to my accountant, had a mentor at the time, like spoke to a few different people. And I just decided the best thing was to pause everything, like pause the boxes, pause the brand, close my unit, like hand my notice in there. I was also going through a breakup at the time, and that was like my whole adult life. I'd been in that relationship, so that was it was like a whole lot going on.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, something just had to give at the time, and so I just decided to pause it. And then in 2022, which was last year, I decided to bring the boxes back, but just as a quarterly. So once every 4 months to go with the seasons. It's a slightly bigger box, so you get kind of more luxury items in there now. And the numbers in terms of like how big the boxes now are so different from what they were at, but the community is like really engaged, really absorbed, like really invested in their own self-care journeys. And then I started to kind of like put the feelers out on retreats and in-person stuff. And that's really been the pivot now in Wild Woman, is that the retreats, I've just got back from my third retreat, running my third retreat. It feels like so right for the brand, and it feels so right for me to be holding space. Like I love to host people and to like enjoy other people's energy in person. So I would say that the retreats have like saved the brand.
Yeah.
And I think I'm still kind of like finding my feet a little bit as to like how I'm now positioning the brand, but the brand has become more of like, I guess it's become more of me, which is slightly ironic because when I first started Wild Woman, I worked with a coach and she said to me, so, how do you see Wild Woman being? And I was like, well, I just want it to be a brand. Like I want it to be something that people like to be a part of. I just want it to be kind of like, we look at something like Sweaty Betty as a brand. Like I want it to just be a brand.
Yeah.
She was like, so do you not want to be behind the brand? And I was like, no, don't want my face to be part of the brand. Like I just want the brand to do its thing. And she said to me then, I think that you should consider you being part of you being the brand, because like you're the person that's passionate about all of the things that you're talking about. So thank God that she said that, because now I know, like, actually, yeah, Wild Woman isn't Wild Woman without me.
Yeah.
And I think that's then allowed me to like almost grow with the brand and evolve into like different areas of, my own kind of professional life. So I'm a qualified coach now. I'm just completing my training to be a conscious connected breathwork facilitator, which is an area that I'm really passionate about. I'm just about to do my level 2 Reiki. So yeah, everything's moving much more towards this like in-person, holistic, feels really like soft and in flow, and just feels like this is where I was meant to always be, but I had to go through that to get here.
You have to just kind of grow in any way that you can, which is what happened with originally with with the pandemic. It was like, okay,
Yeah.
fast growth, let's go, and then let's just figure this out. Let's just go with it, see what happens. And sometimes you need things to crash or to change that are out of your control so that you can actually realign yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And that is actually something that I teach in my Grow Wild course, which is an online course, but it's I've just done it as a retreat, just come back from the first retreat running it in that style. And Grow Wild is literally about how, just like the plants need to sometimes die down and go into winter and then bloom again, like that's exactly what I teach in that course, as to like how that happens with us as being human beings. Like we need those periods of time to just like let everything surrender and die back so that then we can bloom again. But like next time we bloom, we might have a little less flowers than we did in the last season, or we might have bigger flowers, like it's all really like,
Yeah.
that's how nature works. Of course, like that's how we work as human beings. But I think so often we forget that we are nature.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I've never really thought of it like that. As you say that, like we are nature. And so how, I mean, obviously we are different to plants, but how are we though? Like we're all kind of born in the same way and leave in the same way, to a certain extent. So actually and when you do look at plants and flowers, they every year, every season, they develop and grow and die and rebirth
Yeah.
and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think like seeing the transformations in people after kind of a hit rock bottom
Mm.
have been like the greatest.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think that was one of the things that I realized personally when I was going through what I went through in like 2021 into 2022. Like literally every single day, I would just say to myself, like, just surrender, like, just literally surrender to whatever's going to be. And ironically, the last book that I put in the last monthly box was called Surrender. So it was almost like I
Oh.
instinctively knew that I was like gearing myself up for this like massive period of surrender. But I had it in my own mind that it would take me maybe like 3-4 months to like recover from having all this bad stuff happen and go through all of these emotions. And if I could just get through 3 or 4 months, then it would all be great. Everything would be rosy again and I could just crack on. And it wasn't like that at all. And it's probably taken me nearly 2 years to
Mm.
get to this point now where we're like October 2023, where I'm literally like, I feel like I can breathe again.
Yeah, things are making sense. But also you touched on going through a breakup of someone you'd been with for your whole adult life. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm guessing we're talking like 10 or so years here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a huge change and that's a whole rebirth in itself.
Yes. Yeah. Because you're so used to not only living in the same space as that person, but like always thinking about that person and always like thinking about what the two of you might decide to do together, or thinking about your life together. And it took me so long to get used to the fact that like the only person I needed to think about was myself.
Yeah, and the only person you really need is yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's great to have relationships and it's great to have love and friendships and all of that, but like when like the door is closed and it's literally just you sitting in your space, like if you don't have that relationship with yourself, then it feels like a really lonely place and a really miserable place to be in. Like I've been in that place, definitely I was in that place at that particular time. But again, I think that's something that I've had to really keep building over the last like 2 years or so. Like keep working on my resilience, keep working on like the words that I use to describe myself, or the opinions that I form in my head about myself, like in any given second. And in some ways, my relationship with like the breath has really helped me enable that, like has really helped me become more mindful in how I treat myself and how I am with myself every day. And that's literally just because I think I give myself a bit more breathing space now.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. Giving yourself more breathing space and time doesn't equal like less finances or less
Mhm.
success. And I think this
Mhm.
is what needs to be kind of like hammered into us, that the hustle
Yeah.
doesn't always equal that end result that we think we want.
No, and I would say there have been times, especially navigating the pandemic being one of them, because the pandemic, whilst it was great for me in terms of Wild Woman, it was terrible for me in my like what kept a roof over my head, i.e. my marketing work. It was really terrible. Um, some of the times where I've had less success, and I say that like in inverted commas because I do believe success is such a like, you can't really define it. There's no like overarching definition of success, but like what society tells us success is, i.e. money in the bank or material possessions or whatever. At that time when I just didn't have any of those things, I was probably the most grounded and felt the most supported and happy than like ever, because I knew that like I just fully surrendered and like there was nothing else that I could force to happen, and I wasn't always chasing something and trying to like force something to happen. I was just being really organic. And I hate to come back to plants again, but I just really love plants. It's a little bit like you can like over fertilize the soil in your garden
Yes.
and
Yeah.
suddenly nothing's growing. But actually, if you just leave it in its like organic peat free compost to do
Yeah.
its thing, and you let the elements, i.e., the sun, the rain, all of that, care for that patch,
Yeah.
then it blooms in a much better way. So I feel like that's kind of what's happened to me.
Yeah, totally. And also it kind of comes back to that minimalistic thing, doesn't it? Like actually when you have less, you do naturally have, well, yes and no. You can have more worries and more stresses. But if we're kind of just talking in terms of like, wanting more finances in business, it's like actually when you are just like say you become more grounded, you
Yeah.
have less to worry about, because when you do like reach those next income levels, it's like new level, new devil. You just find more to spend on, you have more stresses, you stretch yourself more. And
Yeah.
actually I'm sure like so many people can think back to a time where like actually they had pocket money, or they would just literally have a little bit of spending money each month, or whatever it is for them, and actually they're quite content.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it is definitely a muscle that we have to keep like training. Like, for so long. And a big part really of why my relationship didn't work is I knew I was like reaching my mid-30s. So I literally just turned 35. And I was like waiting for this thing to happen in my relationship. Like I was waiting to get married. I was waiting to have a baby. I was waiting to buy a house. I was waiting to do all of the things I thought I should be doing.
Yeah.
And I completely celebrate anybody who has done that and is living their life in that situation. But the difference for me was that I felt like I was always fighting it, like I was always kind of forcing it to happen. And it's taken me some time to use that like muscle to be like, it's okay that I'm 35, and it's okay that most of my possessions, well, in fact, I don't even have a storage unit anymore because I got rid of everything.
Oh God.
Like everything that I own is like currently in my mum's spare room, which is where I'm living. And I could punish myself every day for saying, Donna, you're 35. Like, why are you living at your mum's? Me and my mum have a great relationship. It's like living with a best friend. And I have been able to take all of these steps to like heal myself fully. And now I'm at this place where I'm like, I could literally do like whatever I want, really. I don't have anything that's like weighing me down or holding me back.
Yeah.
And the number 35 doesn't actually like come into it. Like it doesn't mean anything. I think it's just more about like on a day-to-day basis, are you happy in yourself with yourself?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It is about you with yourself. And I think that's such a key word there, like with yourself. So many of us don't even like to spend time with ourselves or
Mhm.
face up to who we actually might be. And that's
Yeah.
such a key part of that healing journey.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it is uncomfortable, but it can sometimes also feel like really great when you're like, oh, this is nice. Like I used to hate the idea of like going for a coffee on my own or like going for breakfast on my own. And about 3-4 months ago, whenever Barbie came out, when I feel like that
Yeah.
was ages ago now, but um, I basically planned this whole weekend for myself, and it
Yeah.
was like I got up in the morning, I did like a couple of errands I needed to do. I booked breakfast for myself, like took my book, sat eating breakfast, booked a ticket for like the early showing of Barbie, like went on my own, did a bit of shopping, had a mooch. On the way home, I was like, I really fancy a roast dinner. So I like got myself all the things I needed to get to cook myself a roast. And I did all of the things I would normally like thrive off doing with other people on my own. And I remember by the time I like went to bed that night thinking, I've done it. I finally like achieved the day that I would love to do with like normally with my friends and my family, but I've done it on my own. And do you know what? It felt really good.
And you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I loved it. It was like one of the best weekends I've had this year. I loved it.
I've got like images of you like high-fiving yourself, like, yeah, yes,
Yeah.
we're home. Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's that. I think that is such a key part when you know you're not necessarily healed, but you're healing, and you've certainly made huge progress, is when you
Yeah.
start to enjoy your own company.
Yeah. And I wasn't like, it wasn't about me having like, it wasn't about me like going to buy loads of things, or it didn't cost me very much money. Like, it was just that sense of like knowing that I'm okay
Yeah.
and it's better now than it was then.
Yeah. Yeah. And everything moves, doesn't it? What's that saying from Deepak Chopra? He always says, oh gosh, I use it all the time now. I can't even remember it. This too shall change. This too shall pass.
Yeah,
That,
absolutely.
that feeling of like this, however you feel, will pass.
Yeah. And it's really interesting that whole like this too shall pass, because how often do we literally like butt our heads thinking this is never going to change, like this isn't going to pass. But I think if we can like, and it does come down to the surrendering, it comes down to like the being mindful and just trusting. Like I have so much trust in the universe, whatever you want to call it. I have so much trust in it because I know there have been some like hideous things that have happened in my life and I see them for what they are. But the universe has always got me. Like I'm literally still here. And whenever I feel really terrible, I always just remind myself that like I'm still breathing and my heart's still beating. And that's because I've trusted that I'll be okay.
Yeah, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful. That moment when in 2021, when you were like, I have to surrender, it reminds me so much of this one particular time in my life where I just couldn't. I tried everything to help this situation, and I just thought my only option now is to surrender. And it, for the first time in so long, it transformed, and I was like, wow, I let go of all control, and it
Yeah.
just sorted it out. It
Yeah.
whatever it is out there, universe,
Yeah.
just sorted that for me because I just let go.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is all it is about letting go. But that is so hard to do. And it's really interesting since I've been doing my breathwork training. The style of breathwork that I'm training in is all about releasing stored emotion essentially in the body. So conscious connected breath is used as a modality to release energy or emotion that's trapped in the body. And it's really interesting, like witnessing how we hold on to that, even in like a breath work where we like know because our body is like showing us. So like our hands can clench up without us really knowing if we're in that type of breath. And that's our body telling us like, this is really hard for me, but I need to let go and release. And just witnessing how like the body will show you that it's time for you to let go. And then once you do let go, like the reaction that happens in the body and then how you feel afterwards is crazy. And it's one of those things you're like, I just wish I would have just surrendered to that a little bit sooner or accepted it. Like, like accepted the fact that that's how it is right now. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to waste any more energy on the thing that I can't change, but the thing that I can change is how I feel about it.
Definitely. Yeah. So that year, you're like super growth, the year of the pandemic, the main pandemic. How would you say you behave now as a person, like your habits, behaviors, who you are, what you do, compared to that year of like intense growth and like, wow, this is exciting. I've got a unit and I've got all this, customers, etc. Like in terms of like self-care and like self-awareness, how have things changed?
So I think before at that stage, I was always really good at making sure I was taking care of myself in terms of like I would always make sure that, I'd take a lunch break and all of those kind of like simple things, I suppose. But the biggest thing for me that I wasn't doing then that I do now is I wasn't like making choices based on my own feeling. So it's more about like I was doing the physical stuff really well. So like I was getting enough sleep and I was you know, making sure that I was eating well and all of those kind of fundamental things, but I wasn't necessarily treating my mind in a very good way. Because I think I was heavily influenced by opinion, comparison, like what I should be doing. Whereas now, I think that different practices have enabled me to become more in tune with myself, like physically, energetically, emotionally, spiritually, however you want to define that, that if something doesn't feel right for me, like in my body, then it's not right for me. And I think I ignored that a lot before.
Mm.
Whereas now I'm like, hang on a second. Let me just take a breath on this. Is this feeling right? Yeah, this is feeling right. Okay, then carry on. No, it's not. Well, what will make me feel right about it? So I think it's more like the mindset and how I think now, which is really different. And I think that's why I've kind of fallen into changing the way that we look at self-care as more of a commitment thing. So, because I think self-care is something that's seen that we can buy it, like we can buy something off the shelf that's going to give us self-care, which in some ways Wild Woman kind of was built on that.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between receiving something, i.e., a Wild Woman box, like tick that off the list. I brought something for my self-care, and actually like using it and like doing the journaling or reflecting, like questioning yourself on different things that you read or that you learn. Like that's a really different approach to just buying something that's self-care. So that's really where this like work that I'm really passionate about now, about, you know, self-commitment, it just feels different.
Yeah. Self-commitment's a good way. Yeah, it's so true. I think self-care is, I think, you know, everyone's understanding it a bit better now. But, you know, a year or two ago, it was very much go get your nails done, go get your hair done. And, you know, things do also make us feel really amazing. But so, like, I think there's such a powerful point that is actually that commitment piece, like routine, like honoring your inner self rather than like the materialistic things.
Yeah, it's definitely all about the inner work rather than what you see on the outside. And I think there's so much to like unpick with all the things that we've all learned as like learned behaviors over like a whole lifetime on the outside stuff. But there's only really, we're just starting to realize about the inside stuff. You know, I think that's why people like Dr. Joe Dispenza and Gabby Bernstein and like all of those people are getting more of a resurgence now because people are realizing that actually it's the inside stuff that as a result affects the outside, not the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that, you know, when you do go get your nails done, you walk out and you like to look at them, and then you might drive home and you like to look at them on the steering wheel, and then, you know, all right, well, this is for me. And then that's it.
Yeah.
But when you change that inner piece for yourself, when you start to heal, accept, and work through and honor, like, you know, where you were saying that your self-care there is to actually make decisions that are for you and that are aligned for you, that feeling lasts a whole lot longer.
Yeah, a whole lot longer. And that is something that money just cannot buy.
No.
Like you cannot buy it. If you could buy it, oh my God, we would be like super billionaires by now.
Yeah, you cannot buy that permanent, long-lasting change.
No, you can't. You can't. And that's it. I think we all, how many times have we tried to buy it?
Yeah. Yeah. And because it's misunderstood in our brain, we don't understand what we're actually looking for and what we actually need.
Yeah. There's a really amazing book by Mel Wells called Hungry for More. Do you know it?
Yeah.
That talks about this a lot. Like just so good. Like we're always looking for more. And unfortunately, like life has been kind of designed to make us always want more. I was having a conversation in the retreat a few weeks ago, and we were talking about like mobile phone usage and, you know, your relationship with your mobile phone. And there was a point that I made, which was, why do you think that we don't have mobile phones with keypads on anymore? And everyone was like, oh, I haven't really thought about it. And I was like, well, it's because it's a bigger screen, which psychologically makes you feel like you've got more to scroll, which is exactly what the tech companies want you to do. Whereas if you just had like the tiny screen that we used to have when we used to play Snake with our keypads,
Yeah.
that wouldn't have so much like lasting. We wouldn't pick our phones up so much because we wouldn't get that kind of like endorphin every time that we picked our phone up. So I do think there's so many things in life, and largely those things come from big brands and businesses who are building systems and things that make us spend lots of money to help us start to like feel like that. But no amount of like screen or tech or whatever it is going to make us feel like that. In fact, and I do think there's so much research coming out now, it's making us feel worse.
It is. Yeah, it is. I mean, I wonder how many people sit there for 10 minutes and scroll through their phone and feel better afterwards.
Yeah. So, I completely agree. I know myself, I don't know if you feel like this, but if I am having a bad day, like if my mental health isn't in a very good place on that particular day, for example, I can guarantee that my screen time is higher. I can absolutely guarantee that. And I know that's because I've gone looking for something because I'm trying to dull out how I'm feeling. But if I like manage to, I don't know, decide, do you know what? I'm going to take myself for a nice walk today. Then I'm going to do a load of journaling and just get this thought out. Then the days that follow that won't be like full of screen time like they would be if I didn't do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so true. When you have a day that is filled with fulfillment, even if it's not necessarily busy, it's personal fulfillment. Definitely. Yeah. I do hate those notifications that come up on a Monday and it's like, your screen time was up from last week. I'm like, oh, damn it. How?
Yeah. See, I always used to be able to get away with it because so much of my work was based on my phone, like with marketing and doing kind of, like running social media accounts and stuff. But like, it's not really like that anymore. So that's why I know like the signal's there. I can always pretty much pinpoint when that week is going to be because for me, it's very much related to my cycle.
Yeah.
My screen time's going to be up for that particular week because my hormones are going to be raging at me.
Yeah, they're going to be like, yeah, the answer is in Instagram somewhere on what someone else is doing with their life. Go find it.
Yes. Oh, that's what I should be doing. And then how much time and energy do you spend on like thinking, yeah, I should be doing that? And no, you shouldn't be.
Absolutely. It's endless. So just as like to kind of round it off, I'm thinking like for your if there is someone who, well, there's plenty because I work with so many people who are kind of in this mid-30s, a bit like, oh, my life's maybe not what I thought it was going to be when I was younger, or it hasn't followed the typical, society plan. What would you say are the best kind of self-care tips and tools that work best for you?
So for me, I think being really honest with yourself is the number one like thing. So if you're finding that you are comparing yourself a lot to, I should be doing this, or my life doesn't look like that, and I kind of wish it did, like get really clear and be really honest with yourself about why it doesn't look like that. And that might then show you that actually it's not that you truly want that. It's that you want something different, or it's just that you need to make a tweak here or there. And I do think a big part of that piece lends itself really well to like the next thing, which I would recommend, which is to like revisit your values. Because I really wish that values was taught in school.
Yeah.
Because your values really dictate how you live your life. And your values will change, but a lot of the work that I teach around values is like understanding what your core values are right now. And they will probably change if like a big life event happens or something significant happens or changes in your life. Your values might change as a result of that. So it's good to keep revisiting them. But largely, those values will stay the same throughout like most of your life, even if you take like the next 5 years, for example. And then when you understand what your values are and you've got an idea of like, what do I really want? Then the third thing that you build on top of that is then looking at your boundaries, because I have this analogy, which people always laugh when I share this analogy, but I personally think it's great. That if you imagine that your values are like little ducklings, like fluffy, cute little ducklings. And then if you imagine that there's like a farm where your ducklings live, they need to have a nice fence around them to protect them from all of the baddies, like all of the foxes and other things that might get them.
Yeah.
So your boundaries is your like fence that protects your chicks, i.e. your values. So if you don't have like strong boundaries, then your values won't be met. So if you understand what your values are, and then you can look at, well, what boundaries aren't being met because my values aren't being felt, then you can change the whole perception of what's going on for yourself, which will then enable you to have a more aligned, this is what I want.
Yeah, fab. I love that. No, I should be laughing at that. That's
maybe that's how I deliver it.
I need to trademark that. You'll hear me now on my Instagram. So imagine you've got these ducks and these values. Oh, it's been such a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks for asking me. It was lovely to catch up.
Oh, it's been amazing. And so where can everyone find you on social media?
So you can find me on Instagram mainly. I don't really like to spread myself too thin these days. So just at We Are Wild Women, or on my personal profile, which has got a bit more about my coaching, my breathwork, which is at Donna Hay.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks, my love.
Bye.